In this video, we are going to talk about Flexbox. Now, Flexbox is a layout mode available to us in CSS. And to get us started, I'm going to set up some simple HTML here. I'm going to have a div with a class of parent, and inside of that, it's going to have divs with a class of child, and also another class of child dash, whatever number div that is. And then its inner HTML will be that number as well. And then we'll have 5 of these guys. So there's our parent and our 5 children. I'm going to save that, and we can see it here on the right. And jump over to our CSS. I'm going to style our parent. I'm going to give it a width of 100%, a height of say 350, and an outline of 1 pixel solid black. So there's our parent on the screen. Now we're going to set up our children, say width of 50, height of 50, and an outline 1 pixel solid, we'll say orange. Cool. So there's each of our divs laid out with their numbers, just as we would expect in a display block mode. Now to get started with Flex, we're going to say display flex. And as soon as I save that, you can see that things appear to be aligned kind of like in a float left fashion. What that actually is the flex direction. So we're going to cover about 10 different properties, maybe a couple other shorthand properties, but there's really only 10 that you need to be concerned about. And what's happening here is once we set display flex, all of those other properties are being set to their default values. So if we look at flex direction and set it to row, which is its default, nothing has changed. But we could also set it to row reverse, and you'll see everything gets pushed over to the right. But if you look closely, you'll see it actually reordered all of these items. So 1 is now on the far right. We could also set this up as a column, which is going to stack them up just like our display block from top to bottom. And we could do a column reverse, which again is going to push it to the bottom and also reorder those items. So we're going to set this back to row. The next one we're going to look at is justify content. Now, justify content's default is flex start. So since we're in row, everything is left aligned, ordered from left to right. If we set it to flex end, you'll see everything gets right aligned, but it does not get reordered the way a row reverse might have. If we were working with a column display, it would push all of these to the bottom. Another interesting one we can do is space between, which is going to distribute them across the width of our parent container. And then one more we can look at is space around, which is going to give each of our children divs equal amounts of space on its left and right sides. And likewise, if we were doing that in a column direction, it would distribute them across the vertical space of our parent container. Now, the next one we're going to look at is align items. Now, align items, similar to justify content, but where justify content works in parallel or measures in parallel with the flex direction. So in our case, it's a row. So justify content works on the horizontal space. Align items will always work perpendicular to the flex direction. So this is going to work on the vertical space while we're in flex direction row. So the default is flex start, so nothing's changed there. But if we go to flex end, you're going to see they all get pushed to the bottom. We can also do a center, and with that, we have perfect horizontal and vertical centering. Now we can also do stretch. You're not going to see a change right away, but if I come down here and get rid of the height of the children, you can see that each of our children divs now stretches to fill the entire height of the parent container. Okay, so there's one more we can look at, and that's baseline. It's a little hard to show. I'm going to put this height back. What I'm going to do is for child 3, I'm going to give it a font size of 25 pixels, so it'll be bigger than all the rest. And now, again, this one's a little hard to understand, but if you look, each of these numbers is now at the same baseline. So the bottom of the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, and the 5 are all aligned. And that's how baseline align items works. So now to look at our next property, I'm going to kill that font size. I'm going to set our width of our children to be 200 pixels. I'm going to get rid of the height for now on our parent div. And just for now, I'm going to comment these guys out. So this is going to be Flexbox wrap, and its default is no wrap. And you can see that even though our items are set to 200 pixels wide, because we're setting no wrap, it's never going to let these items in total get bigger than our container. Even if I set this to 500, nothing's going to change. It's going to stay contained in that div. So if we go ahead and change that to wrap, you can see that they are in fact wrapping. Now they're each 200 pixels wide, so we do get a little gap on the right, but at the 2, we wrap to the 3, and at the 4, we wrap to the 5, and then we have an empty space in this bottom right-hand corner. And then the other one we can look at is wrap reverse, which is kind of weird. But if you look, it's kind of wrapping upwards. So we get our 1 on the bottom left, and then our 2, and that wraps up to the 3, and then our 4, and then our 5, and then we get an empty space in the top right. And then what we can actually do is our flex direction and our flex row can be combined into flex flow. So we can say flex flow, row, no wrap, and we're back to our default settings all in one line. So we are going to shift from parent container to item settings. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set all these up to their default. So the first one's going to be flex basis, and its default is 0. The next one will be flex grow, and its default is 1. Then we'll have flex shrink, and its default is 1. We'll have order, its default is 0. And we'll have align self, which much like align items or justify content, its default is flex start. Now, this first one, flex basis, really just means allow all of these to take up a space that's equal along the flex direction. So in our case, it's row. And what that means is, regardless of the size of the row, each of these is going to take up the same amount of space. Now, what I could do is I come down here and say child 3 has a flex grow of 3. And what that means is the third div will now take up 3 times the amount of space and grow 3 times the other ones. So this, I mean, I don't have a measuring tape here, but this third div is 3 times the width of these other guys. And if I want to take that a little further and say child 1 will take up 2 times as much space, you can see child 1 is taking up twice the amount of space as 2, 4, and 5. Child 3 is still taking up 3 times as much space as those guys. So the next one we're going to take a look at is flex shrink. So I'm going to set up child 2. I'm going to say flex shrink is 3. We're not really going to see much change. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to flex basis, and I'm going to set this to 50 pixels. So what I'm saying here is, you know, in a perfect world, all of these divs would be exactly 50 pixels wide if if that was possible and depending on any other rules. When I save that, we're not going to see too much of a shift. Some of them did shift around to attempt to get to that 50 pixel width. When I stretch it out, it's not going to be that different. And I'm going to need to bring up dev tools so I could shrink this down really small. But what you'll see is that the 2 div, the child 2, is willing to shrink 3 times as much as the other guy's. Like, it's willing to get really small there. Okay, the next one's pretty simple. This is order. Now I've got all these set to 0, which is the default. And if I set child 3 to 1, which is greater than 0, you can see it gets pushed to the end there. And if I set child 1 to order of 2, you can see it gets pushed past the 3. The last one we'll take a look at is align self. Now I'm going to set this to flex end. We're not really going to see anything happen, but if I come up here and restore the height of our parent, you're going to see 3 gets pushed all the way down to the end. I could also set this to center, and we got it right there in the center. I'm going to set it to stretch, and we're not really going to see much of a change. But if I come up here and comment the height of our children, you can see it stretches to fill the height of the parent container. So the last one we'll look at is the flex shorthand, which is going to cover flex basis, flex grow, and flex shrink. So the first argument is our flex basis. The second one is our flex grow. And the last one is our shrink. So I could delete these guys, save that, and everything's going to stay exactly as we had it before, but we've done it in one line. I'm Joe Metalone. I make short, practical videos that respect your intelligence and your time. If that's your style, you'll like this channel.